There's to be a clear consensus in the Formula One community about Max Verstappen being the best driver on the grid at the minute. That too by some distance. Even the die-hard Lewis Hamilton ultras wouldn't disagree with you on this point. That second spot in terms of driver ability seems wide open at the moment though. With an aging Hamilton and Alonso, and both McLaren drivers' hopes of a championship crumbling under pressure at the tight end of the season, there are two main candidates that pop up the most in the conversation: Charles Leclerc and George Russell. Now before this season there really wasn't much of a case for George as the second best, but this season he has really come into his own. Formidable drives in Canada and Singapore resulting in wins, and being the most consistent podium sitter behind only the 3 title challengers, has landed him in the debate with Charles Leclerc, who, in comparison to his incredible 2024, is having somewhat of a lackluster season, whether it be due to Ferrari's inconsistent pace and horrible execution when it comes to setups. His 6 podiums and 1 pole look rather insignificant in comparison to the season George Russell has had, although you could say the same about Russell in comparison to Leclerc for 2024, 2023, and 2022. Where he finished well behind Charles, and the debate will rage around in circles forever. Thus, in this video, I will be doing a deep dive of both of their careers side by side, starting from junior formulae, right up to their most recent seasons in F1, to finally settle who among the two is the better driver, at least up until now. Charles and George were actually teammates together in karting back in 2011 for junior karting team called Intrepid. Alex Albon was also part of this team. Leclerc ended up winning the Junior Karting World Cup for Intrepid, while Russell won the European KF3 Championship. Although they did come up against each other in some races in karting, there is no significant data showing them fighting for the same championship. The two did race in the same series over a full season twice, though, in single-seater racing, in the 2014 Formula Renault 2 Championship and the 2015 FIA F3 European Championship. I will be awarding points to each of them based on each year of their career, so make sure to stick around till the end to find out who comes out on top. And you can do the same. Make sure to leave a comment of yours below. Let's take a look at the 2014 Formula Renault 2 Championship standings first. The championship was won by 2019 F2 champion Nick de Vries, who was in his second year in the championship, while Charles and George were both in their rookie years. This made them eligible for the rookie championship as well. Charles ended the season on 199 points and finished second in the championship, as a result also winning the rookie championship. George finished fourth in overall championship, 76 points behind Charles, and third in the rookie championship. However, it is important to note that Charles retired due to engine issues in the first 2 rounds of the championship, while George withdrew from the 9th and 10th round of it. George could have finished third in the overall championship if not for that, and Charles could have given de Vries a bit more of a title challenge. 76 points between Charles and George is a massive difference though. Next year the two moved up to the European F3 Championship, where Charles yet again won the rookie championship, and George finished third in it. Also 4th and 6th in the overall championship respectively. Charles finished miles ahead of every other rookie, including Lance Stroll, who also finished slightly ahead of George, but Charles ended up finishing over 160 points ahead of George, which in turn got him to GP3 a season earlier than George. Hence, we never got to see them together in any other junior formulae after 2015. Charles's 2015 F3 season shows how much of a cut above the rest of his class of drivers he was. Moving on to GP3, which both of them won in their rookie seasons in 2016 and 2017 respectively, Charles getting there a season earlier than George as a result of his brilliant European F3 season in 2015. George won his GP3 with a bigger gap to second place, but he did have an extra year of experience in a lower division of racing. Their GP3 seasons, despite that, were pretty similar if you look at them head to head. Charles with 3 wins and 4 poles, George with 4 wins and 4 poles, and ultimately getting 18 more points. You could make a compelling case for both. Fast forward to 2018, George Russell won an exciting season of Formula 2, beating both Alex Albon and Lando Norris to the title. George won the championship with a pretty similar gap to second place as Charles, but George's grid was a bit more experienced and talented. Although Charles did beat much of the same grid in his F2 championship win, a lot of them were also in their rookie Formula 2 season. Whilst in the same year, Charles Leclerc had such an impressive Formula One rookie season that Ferrari gave him a seat for the very next season, after seeing just half a season of him, giving him F1 champion Kimi Räikkönen's seat no less. 2019 was George and Charles's first season in F1 together, but at the opposite ends of the field. George drove a glued to the last row Williams, while Charles drove the second fastest car on the grid. George beat his teammate, the mightily talented Robert Kubica, 21-0 in qualifying head-to-head. Kubica was a shell of his former self upon his return to F1, but still hugely impressive from George. Charles, on the other hand, beat his 4-times world champion teammate Sebastian Vettel convincingly. Seb was past his prime, but still a top 5 driver on the grid in 2019. Not only that, Charles finished the 2019 season with the most poles of anyone in F1 that season, beating even the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton to that feat. An absolutely insane feat in just his first season in a quick car. In 2020 and 2021, the Williams remained one of the slowest cars in the grid, but that didn't stop George from getting a podium, a bizarre no-lap race in Belgium in 2021, by putting his Williams on the front row in qualifying the day before. Charles, meanwhile, got himself a couple of poles in 2021 in a midfield-ridden Ferrari, a mighty feat. Monaco in 2021 would have been an easy win, but a gearbox issue on his installation lap saw him not even start the Grand Prix. Very difficult to choose a clear better driver between the two in these years. 2022 was different though. Russell finally got his move to Mercedes, and for the first few races Charles had the fastest car on the grid. Both made the most of it. Russell actually ended up second in Drivers' Championship, 36 points behind Leclerc. After the third round of the season, Russell ended up having an incredible first season for Mercedes, beating his 7-times world champion teammate, and also finishing ahead of one Ferrari. Charles, despite being in contention for the title for half of the season, saw it all fall apart amidst reliability issues, technical directives, Ferrari strategy chaos and mistakes in Imola and France. He did end up finishing ahead of one Red Bull though, and second in the standings, which is no feat to dismiss. 2023 was a lackluster year for both. George finished over 60 points behind Lewis and Charles, while finished slightly ahead of his teammate, was nowhere near as consistent in the first half of the season as you would expect him to be. The second half of the season from Charles was exceptional though, picking up several poles and podiums, finishing 5th in the standings with Fernando, but joint on points. 2024 marked the only year in F1 yet where both Charles and George won twice, Charles even managing to do it thrice, including the one that kept getting away, Monaco. This for me as a viewer was Charles's best season in F1 yet. I don't recall him making any self-induced mistakes all season, incredibly consistent, keeping up with the quicker Red Bull and McLarens, finishing over 60 points ahead of his teammate Carlos Sainz, who also had an exceptional year. George, while in the 4th fastest car, did win 2 races and finished the season ahead of Lewis Hamilton, which I believe is the best he could have done that season. He was pretty consistent too, always best of the rest, and won whenever Mercedes had the pace to win. With that we come to this season, Russell carrying Mercedes on his back after Lewis's departure, a talented rookie teammate by his side who he is 150 points ahead of, an incredible lead. 2 wins to his name on the tracks that suited the Mercedes and McLaren struggled at. George has maximized every single second of this season, and that Mercedes practically forcing Toto for not giving him a contract extension quicker. Charles, on the other hand, has been doing the same but in less spectacular fashion. That Ferrari just doesn't suit him or Lewis. Both of them don't look comfortable in that car. Charles has scored 6 podiums and a pole with that car though, which is still very impressive. Now, the moment of truth. We've gone through every single notable year of George Russell and Charles Leclerc's racing careers. I'll be giving my opinion on who's had the better run so far. You can follow along with the table and write down yours in the comments. Karting years I've jumbled into one. Very difficult to give it to one of them, since both won different championships, so I'm giving them both a point here, essentially a tie. 2014, raced in Formula Renault 2 together. Charles finished ahead by a decent margin, easy point for him. 2015, Charles absolutely decimated George. I almost want to give him 2 points for the humongous gap over George, but we'll keep it at 3-1. GP3, I'll have to give it to George because of the lead he had over second place. Although Charles did do it a year earlier despite being from the same class as him, he did have a smaller gap to P2, but at face value George had the better season. 3-2. F2 seasons are essentially the same. George did beat Lando and Albon, but Albon was also there in Leclerc's F2 championship win. He just finished 9th. And Norris as well competed in a handful of 2017 F2 races and was miles off Charles. George had slightly tougher competition. Charles did it at a slightly younger age. I'm going to give it to Charles because he wrapped up the season with 4 rounds to go. 4-2 to Charles. Rookie seasons, I think it has to be Charles. For me, it's top 3 rookie seasons of all time. That Baku performance in a Sauber, if you think about it, is actually unreal. George was good, but he did end up getting outscored by Kubica, which is unlucky but does damage his season a bit. 5-2 to Leclerc. 2020 would be a tough call, but I'm going to lump 2020 and 2021 into one here, purely because of how poor the Williams was in 2020 and 2021. Because of how exceptional George's qualifying was, in both those years I'm going to give it to him. Charles was great in those 2 years as well. But I do feel they're his slightly weaker years. 5-4, 2022. For me has to be a Leclerc season over Russell. Russell was consistent and very quick in the second half of the season. But to think Leclerc had to retire in Baku and Spain from the lead of the race, as well as his incredible one-lap pace all season long, he was the second best driver that year. 6-4. 2023, I think, was George's worst year in F1, and while Charles wasn't the second best driver that season from the grid, he did overall have a much better year than Russell. 7-4. 2024, as I said before, Charles's best year in F1. Russell was exceptional too, but I don't think he quite had as many big moments as Charles. 13 podiums, 3 wins, 3 poles. I think it has to be Charles. 8-4. 2025, the easiest Russell pick of the lot. I feel like he's finally arrived to the party. Charles has been quick, but this year is George's. 8-5. Well, and there you have it. Charles Leclerc is just about the second best driver on the grid, according to my deep dive. And it's funny because 4 out of 5 of Russell's points were hotly contested by Leclerc, but Leclerc's 7 points seemed quite easy to give. For me, him and George aren't that far off each other, but Leclerc has just proven himself a lot more in the past comparison to Russell. Do you agree? Do you think this deep dive was accurate and a good way to determine who's a better driver? If so, let me know who I should compare next, as well as your pick between Russell and Leclerc in comments. Thank you for watching.